Today's talk I'm titling Driving While Buddhist. And this will cover how we can apply our Buddhist training and our knowledge and so forth while we're driving to make the best of it, so to speak, and to practice benefiting others, helping reduce suffering for other drivers and so forth, and increase happiness all the way around. Well, the first thing that came to my mind when preparing for this topic was our cars are such an excellent teacher of impermanence. That you buy a new car, if you buy a new car, when you buy it and drive it off the lot, at that point, it has lost value because you could never sell it for as much as that dealer sold it to you. And of course, you're going to want to have had insurance on it right before you even drove it off of the lot because of impermanence. And so we have insurance to make sure that if we are in an accident of some kind or another, or there is some damage done to the car or truck or whatever you're driving, that it won't cost you quite so much. So instead, you pay in little increments. And then as the car ages, it needs maintenance. And of course, it needs maintenance because it wears out. It ages, so to speak. And maintenance can be as simple as an oil change, or it could be as major as overhauling the engine, overhauling the brake system, overhauling the transmission, or whatever. That cars need maintenance. Now, they are making cars these days so that they are require less maintenance. I think that's a better word for it than what I was thinking, that they require less maintenance, less frequent maintenance. And it's really amazing about how they have reduced the maintenance requirement of a car. However, it still needs maintenance, and you still have to pay attention to your gauges, and you have to take it in for regular maintenance if you really want to get the most optimum use out of your car, and so forth. And then as the car ages, you maybe start thinking that maybe it's time for me to get another car because this one is in pretty tough shape. And of course, it depends on your budget and your attitude. You may have bought a used car to begin with. And what comes to mind is my pickup truck, which I bought used. The previous pickup truck that I had, my auto mechanic, he told me the best thing you can do for this truck is to fill it up with scrap metal and drive it to the junkyard. And that's what I did with my previous truck. I'm not sure what I did with the one before that. I may have done the same thing. I've been known to buy old pickup trucks and they rust out around here. And then that's what did in my previous truck. And my present pickup truck is rusting. Again, showing impermanence. And we need to take this lesson into our general life, and that is that our bodies are impermanent and all of our possessions are impermanent. So we have you might say, an outlook that is infused with wisdom, with the objects that we have in our possession that we call mine, that they are all impermanent, and that they will not last. And that is the way things work. And so we really can't get any kind of, you might say, refuge from suffering out of these, other than very temporary refuge from suffering. And in a way, we know that, but on the other hand, when the car breaks down and you are in a hurry and you have to be somewhere and do something, and it breaks down, it's really inconvenient, and it can, shall we say, test your patience. Or especially if it would break down in traffic. So this is the first lesson that our cars can teach us, is impermanence. Now, on the positive side, I'd like to talk a little bit about gratitude, because gratitude is a very healthy emotion. It's a very healthy feeling, and it's really good to cultivate gratitude. One of the sayings in the 7 points of mind training is be grateful for the kindness of others. So I'm going to go into this, but there's even more than the kindness of others to be grateful for. But while I'm on that topic, for one thing, it took human beings to develop the car. It is a human, I don't know if the word is invention, but it's a good word. And it happened over time. It wasn't like an overnight thing. First, man had to discover fire. And it went on like that. And until then, at the end of the 19th century, the causes and conditions were ready for an actual drivable car that had an attached motor was developed. It was pretty simple, but it worked. And then from that, the cars gradually took on their present form. Now, my grandmother, who was born about 1896, I believe, she would talk about her childhood on a farm in Wisconsin. And of course, at that time, when she was growing up, there were no cars or pickup trucks that her family owned, and probably most of the people that they knew. She became an adult, she would have been 20 in 1916. So she, on the other hand, would talk with fondness about hooking up the horses and taking a buggy to go to town. I don't think she did field work, but she had 7 older brothers, and they all had horses. She said they all had buggy horses that they were very proud of, and made sure that nobody hooked them up to a farm implement. But she never talked about feeling deprived about not having a car. Now, in my present, in this lifetime, the first car that I remember clearly was a car that my parents had. It was a 1955 Ford. And So I was doing a little bit of math, and I believe that in 1925, they were still making Model T Fords. Certainly in 1920, that would have been 35 years earlier. They were making Model T Fords, and Model T Fords had a crank to start the engine. It did not have a starter. Henry Ford made this car so that it was very inexpensive to make and therefore affordable. And well, this 55 Ford had a lot of things that the Model T didn't have. It still did not have power windows, power brakes, power steering, air conditioning. It had a metal dashboard with knobs that stuck out that if you were ever in an accident, you would hit your knees on and do significant damage. No seat belts, no airbags, and on and on and on and on. And it didn't get all that good a mileage either, for that matter. And I remember as I grew up, my uncles, this goes back to impermanence, when we would have family get-togethers, the uncles would get together and they start talking about their cars and how many miles they would get on their car in terms of longevity. And they would be bragging, I got 100,000 miles on my car. And that was something that was unusual back then because the cars were not built like they are today. They're not nearly as well built back then as they are today. So where I'm going with this is that it's so easy to forget, that we are indebted to a long line of human beings that gradually developed the technology that was necessary for whoever. Henry Ford claimed that if you worked for Ford, that's what you heard. If you were over in Europe, there's a German, I think, that was credited for inventing the car. It really depends. But anyway, uh, conditions had to be in place before the car could be, quote unquote, invented. Besides fire, we need to invent the wheel too, by the way. So, and then since that time, there has been a lot of time and effort working on improving the car, developing it, and so forth. And so, as I said, maybe 30, 35 years before that 55 Ford was a Model T. Now, let me do the math here, 45, 20, 65 years later, it's just a totally different car. It still has four wheels, a steering wheel, doors, and so forth, and a internal combustion engine. But it gets, at least my car gets much, much better mileage. It has so many creature comforts and so many other features. You get a wonderful sound system, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. Well, I shouldn't say Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. And you can talk on your phone while it's in your pocket, and on and on and on. Air conditioning, lots of warning lights. Cars today, if you get too close to the car in front of you, it will let you know. In mine, it'll actually put the brakes on. Let you know if you get out of your lane without having a turn signal on, and on and on and on. They're just, I don't even know all the features that my car has. I don't know how to operate everything on the car. It's too, you might say, too technical for me. But the bottom line is these cars today will easily go 200,000 miles if they're maintained properly. And I know people that have 300,000 miles on their cars. And it takes much less maintenance to do that. And so it's really good to keep this in mind and have a certain amount of gratitude towards what people have done in the past. And instead of getting mad at your car when it breaks down or doesn't do what you would like it to do, try to replace that with some gratitude. And in terms of price, I looked this up, that my first car was a 1966 Volkswagen Beetle. And I did an inflation calculator on the internet. And today it would be, what I paid for it would be $12,850. And I'll tell you, you get a lot more for that in a car today. It might be a really stripped down economy, small car. And I think you can still buy new cars for that price or close to it. But Volkswagen Beetles were high maintenance. I know I sold mine under a little over 60,000 miles on it to a guy locally out here. And I think in less than a year, it broke down for him. And low comfort, low power, and just a very bare minimum on the inside of the car. So that's one thing to be grateful for is our cars. Another is the infrastructure. If you've ever been over to India, Nepal, and so forth, you really, or even third world countries, South America, Central America, you really start appreciating the infrastructure that we have here in terms of cars, gas stations, and so forth. That, well, it needs a lot of repair that has not been done. It's still so much better than it is over in India and Nepal. Over there, I call, they have speed bumps too, but what they really are potholes, and there are lots of them. And I guess I don't have to go into that too much more, but we can really feel grateful that we have highways that we can drive our cars on. And the highways are fairly good, and we can get around surprisingly quickly from one place to another, unless, of course, there's a traffic jam, which will be the next thing to get into. And so what happens is that we have this very confused thinking that when we're going through life, whether it be in the car or whatever we're doing, that we are the most important person. And that when we're in a traffic jam, everybody else on the road, their cars are in our way. And this, of course, is totally confused thinking. Everybody there on this road is there for a reason, like you are there for a reason. You want to get from one place to another, and this is the time you chose to do it. It might be that it has to do with your work schedule or whatever, but anyway, you all decided to take this highway at this time. And so instead of being stuck in a traffic jam, you are contributing to the traffic jam. You are part of it. This is interdependence. And if you can take that attitude when you are stuck in traffic, I think it can really help. Realizing that these cars that are surrounding you, they're also stuck in traffic. The drivers are probably thinking that you are part of the problem and they are not part of the problem. So it's good to use a little wisdom here and think about interdependence and traffic. Now, in the cities, it would be good if more people would take public transportation and if public transportation were more convenient and so forth. But this is what could be rather than what is. Now, there is a slogan, another slogan that I have always liked in terms of it is not intended to have anything to do with traffic, but it can be applied to driving and a different interpretation given on it. And it is, don't try to be the fastest. And there's good reason for this. Both for your own wallet and also for safety reasons. In terms of your own wallet, is the police usually stop the people that are the fastest. In terms of your Buddhist ethics, on the other hand, is that when we are in a hurry, when we want to get quickly from one place to another, it really is the breeding ground of anger. That every little delay that happens can be a cause for irritation. And then the irritation keeps building and building and building, and pretty soon you're really mad. And you start behaving very unsafely. So it is very good to slow down even a little bit and not try to fight the traffic. Something that I think is worthwhile to do also when you're driving, because there are lots of things you can do while you're driving. One is from time to time, observe your mind. And you could call this playing a game with yourself. And the question is, what realm am I in? If you're angry, you're in the hell realm. If you're just trying to ignore the traffic or whatever, you're in the animal realm. And so forth. If you driving is really going smoothly, there's little traffic out there, you're unobstructed in the fast lane or whatever, maybe you're in the God realm. But it's kind of good to check in every once in a while and see, what emotional state am I in at this point in time? And our minds can change very quickly. We can be having a great time driving, and then all of a sudden somebody does something in front of us that is we consider unsafe, crazy, or whatever, and we're in a different realm instantly. So It's good to do this when you're driving. It's good to do this when you're not driving. And that is keep checking your emotional state and see what realm you're in. And of course, then try to work with that. Needless to say, anger is a huge problem, and it's a huge problem when you're driving. It was brought up before I started about how other people seem to be getting more aggressive. This would be specifically about the traffic in Minneapolis-St. Paul area. But I have a feeling that it is not unique. And one of the phenomena that have been observed, and I've observed it myself, is that with less traffic, people tend to go faster, especially on the internet, on the interstate, where you can go fast. That people seem to go faster. And now, of course, there's an increase in traffic because the economy had come back a little bit and more people are working and traveling and so on and so forth. And this leads to more problems. But I think there's more than that going on. And this actually is going to go back to my talk last week about politics. And that is that right now, people are really upset. They're either upset because of Trump, or they're upset and they're supporters of Trump at what Trump tells them the other side is doing. And it seems like there has been a much, almost a race to the bottom. And I'm not talking about political candidates here at this point. I'm just talking about how people relate to other people. That people get angrier more quickly now. And people have less tolerance for other people that have different opinions than themselves. And it's a lot of this is all about me. And when we're driving, of course, it's not about you, it's about everybody out there. And it is about, even if other people are more upset and driving more unsafely and so on and so forth, we have to remember to try to be kind when we drive. And of course, drive in a way that is safe for ourselves and safe for other people. The Buddhist approach always is that we have to look inside at our own mind and see where we have shortcomings and work with those shortcomings, and where we have qualities to work on improving those qualities. And so driving will give us this opportunity to develop patience, to be a little more kind to other drivers, to let a driver cut in front of you when they want to cut in front of you, and so forth. So driving is an excellent time to practice kindness and compassion, letting go of our own agenda. Of me first, I've got to get there right now. Why is this happening to me? And so on and so forth. Now, there are other things that you can do when driving. You can listen to the radio, you can listen to tunes, you can listen to audiobooks, and you can just, you might say, be with having nothing on your sound system. But what I recommend, first of all, is not having things on your sound system that are going to agitate you. You don't need agitation when you're driving. So I think it would be better, and this is, of course, a personal choice, to avoid things that get you agitated and upset and so forth. And I do, when it is all things considered on public radio, I frequently tune that in. Lately, I haven't been tuning it in so much because the news is so political, and again, so much about the anger and the fear and the things that the candidates are saying and so on and so forth. And I don't need that. I voted already. You can do mantra repetition when you're driving. Again, don't do a visualization. You've got to pay attention to the car. But you can do mantra repetition. You can even sing it if you like, Om Mani Padme Hung, Om Mani Padme Hung. Sing along. There are lots of things that you can do that are beneficial. It's good to keep mindfulness, keep coming back, bringing your mind back to the driving itself. Sometimes what happens is that we just get carried away by thoughts, by whatever's on the sound system or whatever. And then we come back to driving and it's like, where am I? And you've been on this road 100 times before. But the last 5 minutes, you've kind of been out of touch with what you're doing. So there are lots of things to be mindful of. It can be the cars that are on the road with us. It can be the various dials and gauges and so forth on your dashboard, the sound of the car driving, and the feeling that you get through the steering wheel or whatever the seat. And, this brings you back to what's happening and out of what's going on in your mind and your thoughts and your distraction and so forth. Now, in this book that we are reading on Tuesdays about genuine practice by His Holiness the Karmapa, he talked in there about putting others above you, feeling that you are lower than everybody. And you can do that when you are driving. Which would mean that you would let people, when you are on the interstate and they're on an entry ramp and they're coming up, instead of speeding up so they don't get in front of you, maybe slowing down a little bit so there's room for them to go in front of you, and so on and so forth. And then pay attention to how you feel after doing that. And if you have just sped up to keep them from coming in front of you, then pay attention. How do I feel when I did that? Now that I completed that action, and so forth. So there's lots of different things that we can do when we're driving to work with it and practice the teachings. I would like to finish up before we open this up to question and answers. And I'd also like to hear some ideas from the rest of you. But it's good to remember that what we're talking about here is in relative reality, the world of confusion and illusion, that ultimately there is no coming or going, that this is just not really the way things actually are. It's the way things appear to be. And as a result, it's not that big a deal. It's an illusion. Now, of course, we cannot really understand this, but I'm telling you this for one reason, and that is so that when you're driving, you don't take it so seriously, just as the rest of life, that we need to kind of relax and open up and give whatever it is we're doing space. And I think driving is a really good example of this, to realize ultimately there is no coming, no going, nothing happens, that this is just an illusion. And if you say then, well, I have to get to work, they don't like it. My supervisor doesn't like it when I show up for work late and so forth. Well, your supervisor is an illusion. Your job is an illusion. Your body is an illusion. So keep that in mind. Again, even though it's just totally verbal, conceptual at this point, but this is where Buddhism is going as we travel the path. Gradually, we come to see that it is just an illusion, like a dream, and that there's no point in getting all bent out of shape because of traffic or whatever else arises, because of your car breaking down and so forth.